Give me your tired, your poor, your Broncos kickers yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the Broncos kickers, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Seriously, why are we signing all the Broncos kickers? Welcome everybody to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jaguars9 representing the 904 from the 602, and today we have a lot of news to talk about. This is going to be the place to be for free agency news because today is the start of the legal tampering period, and the Jaguars making quite a few splashes already. We'll do videos on those in just a bit, but I want to start off with this one that just broke. They have a new kicker. There will be a new kicker in town when the 2024 season begins because former New Orleans Saints kicker and Denver Broncos kicker Wil Lutz is now a Jacksonville Jaguar, meaning that the team has moved on from Brandon McManus. Lutz, kicker for the Saints for a long period of time, then last preseason, a great preseason for Groupie. The young kicker out of Notre Dame hit the game-winning field goal against the Kansas City Chiefs in the preseason game. I live-streamed that one. Then the Saints traded Lutz to the Broncos, thinking that Groupie was going to be the kicker of the future. Lutz, very good season in Denver, but now he's a free agent, and he is joining the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 3-year deal. We don't know the financial terms of the deal as of this recording, but Wil Lutz will be the kicker for the Jaguars in 2024. I'm not surprised the team moved on from Brandon McManus at the kicker spot. McManus, extremely shaky toward the end of the season. Now, he started off great. He started off absolutely great. He was 91% over the first 10 games. Really no bad games for him outside of the Texas game in week 3 where everyone looked terrible. But to end the season, I don't know what happened to him. It was super, super ice cold. That's what happens with kickers. Kickers, you could be on top of the world one day, and then you could be absolutely terrible the next. Happened with Josh Lambo, too. Lambo was playing phenomenally for most of his Jag career, and then 2021 happened, and he just was terrible. There was a stretch for McManus in December where he made 1 of his 5 kicks, and they were pretty easy kicks for the most part. Missed 2 kicks against Baltimore, that awful first half where nothing went right for Jacksonville. Had about 10 chances in the first half of that one. Couldn't do anything with it. The missed kick against Cincinnati. The Jaguars probably win that game if he makes that field goal. Again, I'm not blaming McManus for why the Jaguars lost that game against the Bengals because the defense looked horrible, making Jake Browning look great. There were a lot of things that went wrong. Offensive line protection was terrible. Obviously, there was that questionable call in overtime, the holding call at the end of the game that the Jaguars could have had the ball at the 5-yard line. Instead, they call holding. Either way, McManus did not play well in that game, and it was all downhill from there. It was a downward spiral. Yes, he ended the season 6 for 6, but they were all chip shot field goals, 4 for 4 against the Panthers, and those were all kicks inside 40 yards. McManus, he'll land somewhere. He still has talent. He still has a leg. He'll land somewhere, but the Jags had to move on from him. It makes a ton of sense to move on from McManus and to try someone new. And Wil Lutz is a pretty solid kicker. Wil Lutz, 88% last season. He's been pretty consistent throughout his entire career. He had a rough first game against the Raiders where he missed a field goal and an extra point. But after that week 1 game, 29 for 32 over the final 16 games of the season, and he made all but 1 extra point. So Lutz, pretty consistent. Look at the numbers of Lutz over his entire career. He's about an 85% field goal kicker, and he was very good in Denver last year, right around his average. We know that he has a cannon of a leg. He hit from 60 back in 2022 with the Saints. Lutz last season, 13th in field goal percentage. For some comparison, Brandon McManus, 26th, heavily weighted down by the horrible stretch he had in December. Lutz, another thing with him, he's great on kickoffs. Now, granted, touchbacks last year were absolutely insane. The NFL is trying to change the rule to make kickoff returns more of a part of the game, but Lutz had a very high touchback percentage last year, 87.7%. That was 5th in the NFL. For some comparison, Brandon McManus, 75.6%, and there were some big returns that he allowed as a result. Texan game for 1. Now, granted, that might have been a design play, but either way, McManus had some trouble getting it out of the end zone. Wil Lutz, not so much. You might be saying, well, that was inflated by the altitude. Playing in Denver, it's a lot easier to do that. But keep in mind that Brandon McManus in Denver was at 69.3%. So it's not entirely the altitude. Lutz, very good on kickoffs, booming it out of the end zone. The other thing when it comes to Lutz over McManus, Wil Lutz from 50-plus yards, 58.8%, McManus 54.8% in their careers, so Lutz is a bit better there. And when it comes to the last 2 years, Wil Lutz 7 for 11 for 50-plus over the last 2 years, 64%. Brandon McManus just 13 for 23, so 56.5%. And that's where a lot of McManus's misses were last season with the Jaguars, 50% from the 50-plus yard range. Pretty equal numbers in terms of inside 40, just like most kickers, they're going to hit everything inside 40. It's from 40-plus, 50-plus where you really separate everyone, and Lutz is better in that regard. Even if it's only marginally, it's an upgrade over McManus for sure. So what was it for the Jaguars? Well, number one, hopefully they can solve this revolving door they've had at kicker. They've had a revolving door for a long, long time, ever since the whole Josh Lambo thing went down. Remember in 2020, they had 5 different kickers because Josh Lambo went injured in that Week 2 game against the Titans, had 5 different kickers in a 5-week stretch, including Steven Hauschka, who was probably the worst kicker I've ever seen with the Jaguars. It's not a knock on Hauschka because he obviously was a very good kicker for a long period of time, but by his time in Jacksonville, he didn't have it. So 5 different kickers in 2020. Then 2021, Lambo can't get it done. You bring on Matthew Wright, and then you bring in Riley Patterson for 2022. Very accurate, but doesn't have a strong leg. 2023, Brandon McManus. And now we are going with a new kicker. Hopefully can solve this revolving door. The Jags usually a pretty solid team at kicker. You think Josh Scobie for a decade. Jason Myers was not that good, but then Josh Lambo for a solid half decade was very, very good. One of the best kickers in football for my money. Top 3 kicker in football behind Bucker and Tucker during that stretch. Hopefully Wil Lutz can be the guy going into 2024 and beyond. He is still pretty young. He's only 30 years old. That is very young for a kicker. He's got a lot left in the tank for sure. He's younger than McManus. The Jags go into camp with 2 kickers because not only do they have Wil Lutz, but they do have Riley Patterson. He is back on a futures deal. That's smart GMing on the part of Trent Baalke. You play it safe. You get Patterson, a kicker that you know is accurate and can trust. Again, has no strains with the leg whatsoever. Just in case you can't swing being in free agency, you can't get the guy you want, you at least have Patterson. You can then draft a kicker. You can maybe sign someone that gets cut. And then you make the move for Wil Lutz. So obviously Patterson's your 2. Lutz is your 1. I don't know if Patterson's going to be kicking in training camp and preseason. I don't know what Pearson's strategy is going to be there, if we're going to keep 2 kickers on the 90-man roster or if we're going to just keep 1 and let Patterson go. Either way, Wil Lutz, the kicker for the future. Welcome to Jacksonville, man. Really excited to have you. And if you kick like you did in Denver, we're going to get along great. We're going to get along really, really great. But what are your thoughts on Wil Lutz coming to Jacksonville? What are your thoughts on the Jags just taking all the Broncos kickers? Let me know in the comments down below. What are your memories of Brandon McManus now that he is no longer a Jaguar? And where do you think Brandon McManus will wind up? Let me know all those thoughts down below. That's going to do it for this episode of JG9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, Jaguar9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is Jaguar9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.